Ladies and
hi
gentlemen.
there.
Hello, where do we go?
Right over
You're
here,
right
sir,
over
please.
there.
Joining
The
us
empty
on the
chair?
show. Yes, sir. Joining us
How'd
right
you
now.
guess?
He is the star of the brand new film, Girl on the Third Floor. It is in theaters and on digital platform. Ladies and gentlemen, it is none other than Phil CM Punk Brooks. Phil, how are you, man?
I could not be better. I've heard people say I couldn't be better if I was twins,
If
and
you
I
were-
still don't understand
I
what
don't
that
get
means.
that either.
Could not be better if I was twins.
I guess if you're...
Are they the
If
best?
there was
No.
two of me,
Maybe.
I
It
don't
just
know.
depends. We didn't get to deal with... Yeah, it's too
I
much.
still don't get it.
It's too much. How you doing, man? You all right?
I'm great. If I'm allowed to drink my coffee right
Please
now
do.
in
Yeah,
here,
do what you gotta do.
Cheers to
I'm
that.
good.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
With you.
Do what you got to do.
You reached for yours. There was none.
I knew that it was. I thought I
Yeah.
had coffee, and I didn't fucking have any coffee.
We blew it.
Dude, it's a pleasure to have you here for so many different reasons. But let's talk about. I want to talk to you about this movie here because I got a chance to see it. I watched it last night. It's got a Shining vibe to it.
Oh, thank you.
For sure. How do you hear about this project? And is it something that you're a big horror guy? I mean, I've seen you on The Walking Dead. The after shows and stuff too, and you're a fandom there. But is this something that you've always wanted to do, a horror film?
Yeah, I mean, I was one of those kids making, corn syrup blood when I was a little kid
Yeah.
because I found out you could do that. All the red food dye in my house was gone. I've been a horror fan since I could remember, and I think the appeal was watching movies that I was specifically told I wasn't allowed to watch.
Sure.
And seeing movies like what I call a gateway horror movie is like American Werewolf in London.
Definitely,
I
yeah,
remember
man.
my
Sure.
uncle being like, "Yeah, go ahead, watch it," and watching it, and it's cool, but you don't really get the visceral horror until the end of that movie,
Right.
and then you're just like, "Whoa!"
Right. But was that the brilliance of those movies back then? Though,
Already,
too?
yeah. Well, less is more.
Yeah.
Like how much blood is in Halloween?
Right.
0.
Right.
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 Now, obviously, there's part of me that loves just ridiculous, over-the-top slasher films,
Right.
Like the stuff. Friday the 13th obviously took that and ran away with it. But how I was approached with this is, to me, it's a funny story. They were looking at not auditioning me, but offering me the role. They didn't know how to get a hold of me.
Okay.
And then MPI, the distributor, works with Bobcat Goldthwait. Bobcat was like, "Oh yeah, you should use Phil." He directed me in a couple episodes of Marin.
Oh, okay.
So he was like highly recommended. Dude's easy to work with. It was just simple, and he was great. So.
Bobcat's a fucking good director too.
Dude,
man.
I know.
He's really
like
good.
so wild.
Yeah, yeah.
So wild. And obviously, like, I'm super grateful. He was just like, "Yeah, Phil's great.
Yeah.
Let's use him." He wanted me to use me for some other project that I think fell through, but Marin emailed me and was like, "Bobcat wants your number. Can I give it to him?" I said, "Yeah, go for it." And then simultaneously in the MPI offices, I have a friend of a friend who works there who was literally like poked her head out of the cubicle and was like, "I know Phil." And they were like, What? So I got an email. Hey, MPI wants you for this movie, this is that. And just based on the names, just companies and personnel who were behind this thing, MPI, Dark Sky,
Yeah.
I was like, how do I say no to this? I've been offered tons of stuff. I liberally say no,
Yeah.
because it's just stuff doesn't add up. It's
Well,
not right.
that's what I was going to ask you. So, because you've been out of the wrestling game for about 5 years. So, in that time, have you been offered a lot of movies and stuff? You're just like, no.
Yeah, and it either a lot of the way it goes is like, hey, I want to develop a movie. I want to do this movie with you. Okay, great. I get the script, and it's bad, and then I can easily say no. Or it's a good script. I'm like, great. So what's your plan? Oh, well, we don't have any money, and not just for you, but we don't have any money.
Oh, sure. Right.
So part of the idea is like, well, if you agree, you're attached to it, and then maybe we can help generate money and stuff like that. And I'm not in the business of knocking on doors and trying to generate money and stuff. I got other stuff going on. I understand that's part of the process and stuff. So I get that, but. With this, it was just like, hey, we want you to do this. And Travis Stevens wrote and directed it. So research Travis Stevens.
Right.
Travis Stevens, Uderowski's Dune, Starry Eyes. We Are Still Here. And then like all this other stuff. And I was just like, wow, this is super legit. And they're also like, Steve Albini is doing the score. And I literally paused and I was like, wait. How did you get Steve Albini? Like it was a weird, It's a weird thing. Steve Albini's like this elusive myth. in Chicago rock history, and I know for a fact, dude just likes to sit around and play. But Steve Albini is just like me when it comes to wrestling. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everyone's just like, oh, how come you're not producing music and you're not, in 4 different bands anymore and you're not this? And Steve's just like, I don't know. I just don't want to.
Just don't want to do it.
Whatever.
Well, they knew how to lure you, man. They knew how to get you in.
So they got me,
Yeah.
because it's such a Chicago-centric movie,
Yeah.
and they hit all the right buttons. I'm such a Chicago guy. I was just like, yeah, I'm in, and I'm glad. It's one of the better experiences I've ever had.
And that doesn't happen to you often, where somebody is pitching you a project anymore, and you're just like, yes, all the pieces are together. Usually,
No. I mean, I'm just at a fortunate place in my life where I can, I'm not hustling as much as I used to have to. I've gotten to a point where I'm comfortable, and nobody's suing me anymore. So I'm not just throwing money into a fireplace and watching it burn up into the ether. I'm just chilling. And a good day for me is like, oh, hey, I wake up next to my beautiful wife, my beautiful dog. I walk my dog, I work out, I train, I have fun. And then if I have projects that I am positive about and love working on, then I can do it.
And are you hoping that's what the rest of the life looks like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
See,
absolutely.
And you mentioned that when you it's funny because you bring the beautiful wife and the dog, and I'm like, how much did you have influence in the script also? Like, were there some stuff that
No,
it wasn't because
no,
the music
it-
you're listening to
interesting.
and everything.
It came to me like that.
Crazy.
I mean,
They wrote it for it.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I mean, pretty much.
Yeah, because there's so much stuff. I mean, from what I know about you, is that I was like, oh, this really fit. It probably made you very comfortable to do all this stuff. Yeah,
super, super comfortable.
yeah. But the one thing is because this is like this is your movie. I mean, you're like for a lot. I mean, for a lot of it.
Every frame almost.
That's what I mean.
This is what I tell people. I go, 85% of this
Right.
movie is like my face.
Yeah.
So if you get a problem with that, maybe skip it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's also, I'm sure, like one of the main, like you said, like one of the main reasons that they know get you involved in it, get you interested in it, put together this great team, and then because if you're passionate about it, then you're doing shit like this. You're coming around, you're talking to people because you want to talk about
Yes.
it. Because we've seen in the past shit where you want to talk about it, you don't talk about it.
Yeah, well, days like this are a mission. They
Yeah.
are tough because I'm just bouncing around town, and traveling in LA is rough. You know what I mean? When you got to get from West Hollywood to Burbank and back and forth.
I do it every day. It
It's
sucks.
a mission,
It
so
sucks.
you understand.
Yes.
But yeah, when you tell me to talk about something I'm passionate about, I'm there.
Yeah. So with that though, because there's pressure on you. So do you at one point are you like? Do you ever doubt yourself, or you're just because you come off very confident dude, or is it one of those things you got to get there?
So there's a thing called imposter syndrome, right? Do you know what this
Yes,
is?
fuck yeah.
This is a real thing,
Yeah.
and I think deep down, I think a lot of people have it. They don't recognize it. It happens a lot when people switch careers, something that I've just liberally done, sharp lefts and rights here. I feel like the rest of the majority of the world looks at me and sees CM Punk, the pro wrestler, and that's what they want. They want Phil from 5 years ago, but I'm at least trying to constantly grow and evolve. And you walk in doing this, and it's real weird because if you ask me how it is to act, I'll tell you it's kind of easy.
Yeah.
But then the flip side of that bizarre coin is I think I'm terrible. It's real strange, and 85% of the movie being my face is. I don't want to say it's stressful because it's done. I already filmed it. People are going to watch it. It's already going to show on screens. It's done. It's in the can. But it's just like there definitely is that feeling of you want people to enjoy it and like it. But I think from me, that grows from a place because I enjoy doing it so much and I like the film.
Yeah.
That's the biggest compliment I can give myself. Like I watched it at South by Southwest for the first time in a packed theater, and I was like this.
Yeah.
And then like as people reacted and laughed at things,
sit up a little more.
I was like, oh,
Right.
yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I don't hate this movie.
Well, what
you
about
know?
this act? So Sour Brooks, any relationship?
No
That's crazy.
relation.
Yeah.
But she's fantastic.
Yeah, she's really good.
So good.
She's really good in it. Because she knows who she looks like. She looks like Miri Jedigan.
Oh.
And when I was watching the movie, and I was like, she kind of also looks like an Ali Larder type. I saw Sarah Brooks. I just didn't know if any But what about the first? You have a lot of scenes with her. Any? So how is that like? You know, 'cause it's all about chemistry, obviously. So, first meeting, you meet her at the table read, or is there a lot of rehearsals? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we did two table reads, one at the MPI offices, and then I think we went to Soho House in Chicago one time. And yeah, I mean, you think you have to develop a chemistry with everybody you're going to be on screen with. And one of the more difficult things about this movie for me was the first two. I mean, it was a 4-week shoot. The first 2 weeks was me and the dog.
That's it.
I had nobody to play with.
Was that your dog or just
No. That dog's name was Riker.
Okay.
That dog's the star of the movie. He kills it.
Dog.
Absolutely kills it.
Yeah, he was really cute.
Dog is so good.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of like in this vacuum where I'm doing, you know, you do a scene with the dog. It's literally like, look at the dog.
Yeah. Right.
And then Travis would be like, cut, and I'd be like, huh? Acting.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it again? No.
Meanwhile, the dog's
okay.
like one fucking take, and he takes off. He's done.
The dog was brilliant, and so it was hard to get feedback because, you know, what's good or bad there?
Right.
You know, literally just looking at a dog. You know, can Jack Nicholson do that better than me? Probably, but I don't know why. You know, so once people started coming on set, like Sarah.
Yeah.
Travis Delgado, who plays Milo,
Right.
and then Trieste, who plays my wife, Karen Woodich, who plays the nun.
Right.
You know, all these people I thought I was like, man, they really made me step my game up because I was like, and these people are fucking good.
Yeah.
And I need to be present, and I need to match that energy. So, yeah, I'd pal around with Sarah. You know, we'd goof around, I'd joke and ask her questions. And because we had some intimate scenes,
Right.
you know what I mean? So I didn't want to go into that like cold, but I also wanted to make sure every single female in this movie was comfortable. Like my comfort in those scenes wasn't I didn't care. I was
Right.
like, whatever you guys want to do, whatever you guys are comfortable with, like that's the way we're going to handle this.
And I don't want to spoil it because it's kind of the theme of the movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot inside of that you pick up on throughout the script, and there's moments that happen, and because I'm hesitate to tell too much about the movie because there's stuff you don't want to spoil.
Yeah.
But we will say that Phil's character, he goes and he's taking over this house and he's doing repairs and shit goes wrong.
Yeah.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah, no, it is accurate. But what I think is interesting about it is, you know, the first person you normally see in a movie, the way the movies are structured, is that's the hero.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, the door opens and you see me, so you're like, oh, that's my guy.
Right.
And then I think based on your moral compass, the viewer, you're going to have to decide whether Don Koch is a good guy or a bad guy.
Right.
I think you're very likable, so that makes that decision pretty challenging in this movie. Going back to the imposter syndrome that you were talking about, I think you did a great job, but we do all have a little bit of that inside. What do you do to combat that? Are you taking acting classes? What is it that you do to make it so that you feel comfortable now changing careers and professions like that?
Well, I think I get obsessive with anything I do in my life. I think if I decide I'm going to bike ride, you know, today for my workout or whatever, I'm like, I'm not happy until I got 50 miles in. I can't pedal anymore, you know. So with the acting, I very much want to just hit the ground running and just work because I think you can take classes and you can get tips and you can listen to people. I've always found the best way to do anything is to just do it. You need the experience and the reps, you know. So you need a camera, you need a production team. You just need the like I said, the experience and the reps to do it. So I learned a ton on this movie, and I learned a ton working with the Saskas up in Toronto on Rabid. That's going to be coming out soon too. So I just hope to keep it moving.
What's that one about, Rabbit?
Rabid is a Cronenberg remake.
Okay.
And if you've seen The Fly, obviously,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that was also Cronenberg remade The Fly.
Right.
So I like the parallel with the Saskas taking a Cronenberg film and making it their own. Like it's not a
Daunting.
shot for
Yeah.
shot, you know, remake. I think you can call it a re-imaging, but it's amazing. Girl gets into a car accident and has a horrible disfigurement, and she gets a experimental surgery to heal her face, and you know shit goes
down.
shit goes shit
Right.
goes south
Shit goes
fast.
south.
I know that we're talking about horror movies, but you also are a pretty big nerd like us in that space. What is the dream of dream roles for you in a comic book franchise or in our geek arena?
I hate to be that guy that says anything, you know. I obviously I look up to Dave Bautista in this arena. You know, he kills it with everything he does. But Dave is very, very smart, and he's not just taking every role offered to him.
Right.
It's quality over quantity. You know, I mean, the Marvel universe is so big and it's so vast. I would love to play a litany of characters. I mean, I got friends who are like, "Oh, you should be Moon Knight," and I'm like, "Well, Keanu Reeves should probably be Moon Knight. Let's be honest." But
Would you take it if it was offered to you?
in a heartbeat,
Right.
in a heartbeat, yeah, in a heartbeat. I have used this answer though in the past when people have asked me that. Like, I saw Spider-Man, the last Spider-Man movie with Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
I honestly thought, I was like, man, this might be my favorite Marvel movie. It was just, I don't know, it was just fun and it was great, and the Mysterio character seemed almost made for those effects and CGI.
Right.
And what they did with it I thought was brilliant. So then you start thinking about like other Spider-Man villains, and then there's Kraven,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
the Hunter.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Rumored
man,
for it to come in. Yeah.
well, they could really update that character for 2019. He could be like some crazy right-wing militia dude with an AR-15. You know, like that's in the news. And you saw what they did with J. Jonah Jameson at the end of that Spider-Man film, where they kind of made him like a
Yeah.
Alex Jones, like right-wing pundit. And I don't know, Kraven I think would fit. You know, but whatever they want to cast me as.
That's right. Are you happy that
like
that
it.
Sony and Marvel fixed up their shit and now he's back into the MCU?
Yeah, that's all business,
Yeah.
man. That's all. I don't know if we're ever gonna know like the true story behind that.
Right.
I hear stories and stuff. That's all numbers, and that's way above my pay grade.
Right.
You know. So,
But as a fan though, it's
as
good.
a fan,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Because I think Tom Holland as Spider-Man in the Marvel universe is just such a delightful thing.
Yeah.
So I would have been upset if that went away. Yeah.
So just a couple things. One of the things you talk about as far as the work ethic that you put in, and we've seen that from everything that you've done so far, right? Whether it's wrestling, whether it's working on MMA, whether it's now you're announcing MMA and doing all these things. Where does that come from? Is it from like as a kid growing up in Chicago? Like, was it like when did you first like know? Like, who was it that kind of instilled it in you that you just because you had to move and
I think this is you could do a mock psychological profile on me, and I think the reason I am the way I am is because I was born into a situation where I wasn't a rich kid. I remember good Christmases, and then at some point, I was the kid who I just got socks for Christmas from that point on, and I just realized at an early age if I wanted something, I had to get it myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nobody's helping me. Whether you look at that and that bums you out, like it doesn't bum me out. It made me exactly who I am today. And it's just. You can't help what you're born into, but you can help the end of the story. And I've always just tried to better my situation. I mean, before anybody knew who I was, I had 3 jobs. I was a manager of a comic shop and a skate park in Chicago, and I was independent wrestling and just always hustling because, like I said, if I wanted something, I couldn't rely on anybody else. If I needed something, I couldn't rely on anybody else. So I think coming from nothing, I think I want everything now, but not in like a spoiled brat kind of way, because I also don't want anything that I haven't earned. So I'm constantly like, what's next?
Right.
What's next? What's next? Even now, like I love Girl on the Third Floor and I'm promoting it, but there's a big chunk of my brain that's like, what's next? What's next? It's got to be something. I gotta keep moving forward.
That's such an interesting juxtaposition between I want to be at home with my wife and stay in bed and hang out all day, and what's next? How does that work? Still figuring it out.
Yeah, I mean that's like the bipolar nature. Like that's the push and pull. She's busier than I am. You know what I mean? So it's just like it makes it easier when she's like, "Oh, I'm writing all day and I have meetings." So I'm just like, "Well, okay, I got to find something to do then."
Right.
But yeah, it's that. I mean, that's just the balance of life, right? I'm still trying to figure it out.
I get it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, well, it's acting, it's announcing, hanging it up as far as MMA goes.
I don't know.
Okay.
And that's the other thing about me is I'll never say never. I doubt I'll fight in the UFC again.
Right.
You know, I've had those conversations with Dana, but he says stuff to the media, but then he'll say something different to you in person. But I'm still great friends with him. Great situation. And
What do you mean he'll say one thing to media, one thing to you in person?
I think if I went to him, I was like, "Hey, can I get a third fight?" I think he would say, "Yeah."
Right.
But I haven't done that because this big part of me that's just like, okay, I'm 0-2. You know, like if I fight, I should fight somewhere else.
Yeah.
I should, you know, I should fight on I just do everything backwards. Start in the UFC and then work your way back down and then end as an amateur.
Yeah, it's tougher though because you got a later start in MMA too.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
yeah. It's like, is that
That's not
something?
an excuse. I don't like talking about it because
Yeah.
it's not. I feel like I'm making excuses, but yeah, I was afforded an opportunity to fight, and I'm the guy who's going to be like, "Yep, say yes to everything."
Right.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. That's why I always, for when people said when you jumped in and you got a later start, and some people big critics of it, and I said, the guy's going in there to do it. You went in there to do it. You can say that you fought in the UFC twice, regardless. You were one of the biggest WWE superstars of all time, and you fought in the UFC twice, regardless. Because second one went the distance.
Yeah.
And so like that to me alone, and now you know the sport well, and you've been calling it. Is that something you also love to do as far as announcing?
I am over the moon about that.
Yeah.
I do commentary for CFFC, Cage Fury Fighting Championships. It's a regional MMA promotion. You can see it on Fight Pass for UFC. And they're like the #1 regional MMA promotion.
Yeah.
So they funnel people to the UFC like crazy. So if you're a fight fan, like Paul Felder's come from there, Anthony Lionheart Smith has come from there. There's just a litany of fighters who graduate from there to go on to UFC and even Bellator.
Right.
Again, it's just like the movie where I'm just like, man, this is fun, and I'm surrounded by nice, cool people, and I'm passionate about this. And then at the end of the night, somebody gives me a paycheck for it, and I really feel like I'm like robbing somebody, you know?
Yeah, but you know your shit, and it's also the fact that people want to see you, and it. Roxy was asking me beforehand because I was at the WWE briefly when I was there, and I left in 2001. So you came in with 2010, 2009?
I signed in 05. So you worked there?
I worked there for like...
in 2001 too?
Yeah, it was a writer. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
my
yeah,
gosh.
Yeah, it was...
You're in the thick of it.
My first show was Kurt Angle with the milk truck as Steve Austin. That was my first show.
Wow.
It was awesome. But
so you wrote that?
I did not write that.
No, we'll go with that.
Good job, Christian.
That was all Brian. But anyway, so she was asking me, she said, well, what was it about CM Punk that people loved? And I said, well, one of the things, too, is that you weren't the typical kind of big body Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. Yeah. And you were also phenomenal on the mic, and you never knew where it was going to come from. Was it a shoot? Was it a work? Mm-hmm. We didn't know. And that was the thing that was kind of alluring about you, right? But that's also, I think, the thing that is so endearing, why fans keep asking you. Like you said, I saw an interview that you did recently to where they asked you if you're coming back, and people ask you all the time, you're coming back to wrestling, come back, and you had lost the passion for it. Mm-hmm. But what I've gotten so far, just talking to you here for this half an hour, is that when you find the fire for something, it's gung-ho, give it to me 100%.
Yeah. And
the fans also pick up on that. Is that, I mean, that's...
I think so. I think especially with pro wrestling, I was having a conversation outside with a couple of people out there about the horror fandom and how there's this awesome community revolving around horror movies and characters, and I also think horror is out of all the genres. You know, you don't see people making like homemade rom-coms, but I guarantee you, everybody who goes to a horror convention to meet Kane Hodder or Bruce Campbell, they probably have VHS tapes of like the horror movies that they've made, because we're all kids who make the corn syrup blood at the end of the day, and I think the fan base for horror movies is as passionate about horror movies as the fan base for pro wrestling is passionate about pro wrestling. Like once they like you and they let you in, you're their guy for life. Yeah. And I think I haven't been there in 5 years, and they still chant my name.
Right.
I don't know if they do it every show, but I get tickled to death about it. And then that part of me that was passionate about pro wrestling kind of peaks out a little bit when people take a side. Like people need to stop chanting for CM Punk. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
He left us, blah, blah, blah. And I'm kind of like, I think it's funny because, you're mad about somebody chanting something at a pro wrestling show. And, like, that's the whole idea is to go there, have a good time, lose your inhibitions. So, like, why are you mad at that person? Like, that person's mad because this show sucks. And they paid their money, and they're just, they're letting the person have it. They boo and they cheer. Let them have fun.
Well, it's like movie fandom too. Happens all the damn time. Whether you like The Last Jedi or you don't like The Last Jedi.
Oh my God! Don't get me started on that.
Yeah. Where you stand?
What? How is it a bad? How is it a bad movie?
There you go.
Oh, I thought you were I think it's a bad movie.
No,
that was a major high five.
She's on your side. She's on your side.
Yeah.
Hugely.
Yeah. To
Great
rehash
question.
everything. My point is that it's not a bad movie. Ryan Johnson can make a great movie, and I think he made a good film. I just don't. I'm hard like as where you are with horror. Star Wars is for me. I just don't think it's a great Star Wars movie.
I'm there too.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, where do you rank it? Like, don't tell me you think Phantom Menace is better.
No.
Right. We can still be friends.
Yeah. No. It's lower though, and it was significantly higher at one point, but it's not. You know what it is? It's not fun. It's just not a fun, like most Star Wars movies, even Phantom Menace, which I watched my daughter recently too, and I've been saying this a lot. Phantom Menace to me is when I watch it like an episode of Rebels or Clone Wars now. I enjoy it for that because I understand what Lucas was going for more so than I did back in like '99 when it came out.
Well, it's so hard to have these lofty expectations too, right? Like,
totally.
like if I came back to pro wrestling, there's people who are expecting that 2011 Phil. And it's 2019. They would get 2019 Phil, and they would probably be like, "Ooh."
Is that part of what deters you from it?
No, I just don't want to do it. That's the only thing that deters me from it.
Let me ask you about that though too, because there are these. Obviously, from the second you left, there's rumors that every day you're going to show up, whether it's AEW or now that there's rumors that you were at SmackDown doing stuff behind the scenes with Booker T and Renee Young. Any truth to the rumors that you were the SmackDown stuff that you were there?
Yeah, I did it.
You did do it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so is that something that you want to announce? Do you want to go back? What's?
This goes back to me being in the position in my life where I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you got? I'm very much in a position where I'm like, well, talk to me.
So you're open to it.
I'm open to anything,
Yeah.
And if they come at me and they're like, hey, we want you to wrestle, I'm going to be like, no, I'm not interested. But like, I've grown so much as a person, and I look back at all the stuff, and nothing needs. I don't need it. I don't need the confrontation, and I don't need the drama.
Yeah.
But if I'm a businessman. But I also put my morals and my integrity above business deals.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it is very much okay.
It's got to be the right deal.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? If you want me to do anything, well, okay, then talk to me, but don't waste my time.
What does that look like? What does the right deal? What kind of things are you talking about? Are you talking about finances? Are you talking about what specifically you would be doing? Are you talking about?
It would be all of it. I'm realizing now that this is live, and I'm probably dooming myself. But we're just having a conversation, right?
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, and because it's nothing I'm actively chasing, I don't have numbers or specifics or details or anything like that. It was just my agents got me on the phone, and they're like, "Hey, Fox wants to present the like Fox spent a lot of money getting the rights for." What I understand, just SmackDown.
Yeah.
I thought it was the whole thing. I thought they were getting TV rights for WWE. So it's insane that what did they spend? $4.5.
It was something insane. It was
Is it like $4.5 billion? That's a lot of money.
That's how much Lucas sold Star Wars for.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So to get that. I guess they're looking at things, and ratings still are dipping, and that's been happening for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm not saying that it's because I'm not there, anything like that.
There's a lot of shit on the air, man. There's a lot of shit. There's a lot of content.
It's just always been that way. You know what I mean? I mean, when I was there and I was on top, Raw's doing 3.8s, and I'm getting blamed for it.
Yeah.
Like, that's a bad rating. And now they would fucking kill to have a 3.8.
Right.
So if my agents just called me and they're like, Fox is is throwing everything at this because they spent a lot of money on this and they're all in and they have to make it work.
Yeah.
You know, they reached out and want to know if you. I think originally, like I thought it was like a WWE thing, so I was just like, no.
Right.
And they're like, this is Fox.
So you're dealing more so with Fox than you are WWE?
I'm not dealing with anybody in WWE.
I see.
You know,
Okay.
it was legit. They were just like, it's Fox. And I was just like, okay. And they explained to me what it was. And I love Renee Young. Renee Young's a great person. She's Canadian, so obviously she's like super over the top,
Right.
nice and friendly. And it's along the lines of like what I do for CFFC. But I prefaced it with like, guys, I'm not going to come in and just dump all over stuff to dump on it.
Right.
Like, you know, like I said, that's old Phil. But if it's bad, I go, I can't. I'm not going to be able to pretend that it's anything but bad.
Right.
So they want to present it like it's a real sport. And just have a show that recaps stuff, just like they do with NFL, just like NHL Network would do with hockey games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's where we are with that.
Awesome.
You know,
And nobody from WWE reached out to you after knowing you were doing that to say anything?
no.
Yeah. What's his relationship?
I'm the boogeyman.
Well, that's kind of surprising, though.
Last thing, because I know you don't want to spend the whole time talking about wrestling. So, but I do. There was a clip from because Booker T. We've done a lot of stuff with for the show that we do, and he was asked some questions about that that exact thing. And Chloe, do you have the actual clip of what Booker said? All right, there it is. So yeah, Booker was asked about you coming back. The rumors.
Commentating job, you know, in the ring, he wouldn't be competition. But if CM Punk was to show up right now, I just got this job, okay?
You just got hired.
I just got
Fox
hired,
backstage.
you know, exactly.
WWE backstage.
If CM Punk was to show up, he would be competition for me.
Yeah.
So that means he's going to be a guy that I would call a rival.
He could be taking food off your plate.
He could be taking food off my table. So if Punk was to show up, I implore him to tread water very lightly. You know what I mean? I'm all about shaking hands.
Well, let me
I'm
see.
all about shaking hands. I'm all about saying, hey man, you know, welcome back. You know what I mean? But it's a saying, you know what I mean? Hey, don't cross the line. Don't cross the line, because things might happen. You know what I mean? I'm the type I just might pop.
All right, we can cut it. Booker T, the great Booker T, obviously. So, how's your relationship with Book?
As far as I know, it's all right. I watch that and I see I see the carny side of wrestling, trying to like work it and everybody's always, I'm working, brother. Let's have another match. One more match, brother.
Yeah, he actually ends with that. He's saying that if you came back,
does he?
He actually came back. If he came back in, that he would love to. Because he said you guys had a great respect when you were there. And
I love Booker. Was one of the first guys. I think when I was in ECW and he was King Booker. I think he came over to try to boost ratings on Sci-Fi, and I wound up rolling him up. And pinning him, you know what I mean? And he was cool about it.
He's a good dude. Yeah, I like Booker. All right, so moving on, going back to acting, because you do these two films and it seems like you got the bug and you want to do more of it. What's are there talks about other things that you want to work on? Or you want to stay in the horror genre? Would you want to ever try to do comedy? Because Roxy and I were talking about this morning. Roxy said, I think he'd be probably pretty good at doing comedy.
I thought you had really good timing in the movie, so that's what made me say that.
Yeah.
I thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
think again, vague answer. I'd be open to anything. What always my wife always makes fun of me because I'm kind of a sucker for rom-coms. And I don't know if it's just that I like Ryan Reynolds, but if
You and me both.
it's like a corny ass movie like him and Sandra Bullock, The Proposal,
Yeah, it's a good movie.
comes on, I leave it on and I watch, and my wife's always just like, "You're watching this again?" And I'm just like, it's funny, And you talk about timing, that guy's got the best timing, so it's fun to watch it. I'd be open to doing anything, I already have people telling me be careful, you don't want to get stuck in the horror genre, and I don't buy into that. I think if something's good, I want to be attached to it, and if somebody wants me attached to something that's good, I'm all about it. It doesn't matter what the genre is,
Right.
because I think I can make things my own, like what I sort of did with this role in this movie, and I do it a little bit in the Saska Twins movie too, If somebody came to me and was like, "We want you to be in a comedy," I think that's great,
Right.
And I'm also happy, being paving the way for all the other future pro wrestlers who want to move over and do movies, because since I'm the first guy to leave pro wrestling and enter movies, I think I'm, making just trying to lead the charge and make a good example for everybody.
Well, you're joking too. What you mentioned, Dave Bautista, because Bautista was something for me. To be completely honest, when he first came out, I was like, oh, he's all right, and then I heard him on a couple different interviews. He's a hard worker, and he really. Blade Runner, he was great, and he was in a movie with, and I forget, Hotel Artemis that he was just in with Jodie Foster. I didn't love the movie. I loved him in it.
Yeah.
And he's just a dude. He was talking about James Gunn working with him and understanding like that kind of work ethic. I mean, because when you say you modeled and taught some of the stuff that you from Batista, what he's done. Do you talk to him? Are you?
Yeah.
You are. You guys are pretty close.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So like, what advice does he give you?
Just that. Just keep an open mind. Don't say no to don't be like, oh, I don't want to do a rom-com. It's just like with him, I think he had a tougher row to hoe because he's just such a giant guy, right? I can kind of be more of a chameleon and disappear. I think mainstream the populace will always look at Batista, and it's hard to see past, sorry, Dave, the goon. They see this big goon, you know what I mean? And that's not him. Like, he can do so much more. Like, if you saw Stuber.
Yeah, he was good, Stuber. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Dude, so good.
Yeah,
and I think he tells me you just got to make fun of yourself, and I'm like, oh, that's easy. I do that all the time, and just be loose and be fluid and be accepting of everything. And like, just watching him, I learned so much just watching him. Not even talking to him. Stuber was so like wildly excellent. And like, I wish that was like a bigger movie, just because I thought it was so great.
What about action movies?
Would love it. I mean, I feel like I don't have the abs or the size for it. You know what I mean? But
that's why again, and that's a rehash old stuff. But when that stupid interview that time when the guy asked you if you've been punched in the face, the most ridiculous interview I've ever seen.
What
See, he
happened?
got interviewed
Which one
time.
was that?
I don't remember. It was some guy. I don't know if it was ESPN or whatever it was, but someone was talking about his first MMA fight, and then asked him if he's actually really been punched in the face because of wrestling. And you just looked at him. You're gonna ask me if I've been punched? Yeah, I've been hit in the face, dummy.
Right.
And
That person was probably so nervous.
No, he wasn't. He
no,
was arrogant.
I think it was a gotcha interview.
Yeah,
I think it was. Yeah.
It was somebody who was trying to
What an
put a joke.
idiot,
But
then.
the reason I bring that up is because of the fact that you guys, with whatever it might be. Well, first of all, MMA. Second of all, wrestling. You're coordinating. You're doing all these. You're fight coordinating all the time. So that's why a lot of wrestlers that's what they start with.
Yeah.
So that's why I ask, because I think if you look at and I thought maybe that's what you've been offered in the past, because I mean the Marine is like what, Marine 87 now. There's a lot of those movies, but I was wondering if you'd been offered any action movies. Maybe that's one of them. Maybe not.
Yeah, a couple, but that's why I also think it's pretty interesting, because I don't know anybody else who's done horror. Like Dave hasn't done it, Rock hasn't done it. So, and obviously me being a horror fan,
Right.
it was a no-brainer. But I'm also proud to be like, okay, yeah, that was my first. Instead of the atypical, yeah, okay, he's in an action movie. Like some sort of like D-level, like Expendables movie or something like that.
Right.
I feel like that'd be easy to do. That'd be like a cash grab. So I feel this is more in my wheelhouse, and it's more arty.
And a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's some gore in this movie too. Some serious gore.
There's some serious gore. Like it's literally 0 to 60.
Yeah, it really is.
When
That's
we
what-
hit you with it, we hit you with
And you
it.
can tell you're a horror fan just from watching a movie. You can tell you're a horror fan. But like that, there's one particular scene, and again, without a spoiler, there's something. It's really graphic, and you're like, the camera's held on it as the thing is happening. It's like, I can say it happens in the basement. That's what we'll say. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yep.
And so, are you, because you're not in that scene, but are you watching dailies going, all right, absolutely, that's fantastic. It's like Fangoria stuff.
I didn't watch a single daily.
You didn't?
I didn't want to be that guy who asked to watch dailies.
Oh, okay.
I just didn't. Like part of the like it's a cathartic release was trusting Travis so much and knowing, okay, this dude's a director. He'll tell me what to do, and I'll just do it. And then I'm not going to want to see it because, again, I will criticize and borderline hate everything I do,
Yeah.
So if I watch dailies, I would just be begging, can we set that shot back up? Can I do it again? Can we do it again? You know, as I got more comfortable and as the weeks went on, there were some times when he'd be like, cut, I got it. And I'd be like, hey, can I do it one more time? And he'd give me the freedom to do that. Probably never used a single shot that I asked if we could do it again. But yeah, I just... I think I completely lost my train.
That's all
That's
right.
okay.
Good.
You said you watched the movie at South by,
Yeah.
but it sounds like you struggle to watch yourself back without having judgment. Do you try to avoid seeing yourself on TV, in movies, or do you do it just begrudgingly?
Well, I saw it South by Southwest, and I saw it last night here at Beyond Fest at the Egyptian. And I think the juice for me watching the movie is being surrounded by people watching it. So I can see and like feel the reactions, and I can hear what people are laughing at and what people are like gasping at. And I can see where we were building tension, and it works. I can see the guy in front of me like chewing on his fingernails. You'd never catch me watching the movie like alone.
Yeah.
You're not like putting it on at your house.
No, no. I think you can learn from watching whatever it is you do, but I also think I could learn more just from listening to the crowd react to it. You know, if that makes sense.
Totally. I mean, does that come also from wrestling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What I used to do when I got into a building was made sure that I was there right when the show was going to start. So when they dropped the lights, you would hear that it's like a Pavlovian dog response. You drop the lights in an arena and the crowd cheers.
Yeah.
Something's about to happen. Yay. And I would sit by the entrance and I would shut my eyes. Eddie Guerrero taught me this.
Oh.
So this is a free lesson for anybody out there. And if you're moving to a big network on Friday, you might need to start doing this to help. I would close my eyes and I would listen. They'd drop the lights, and I would be able to tell if the crowd was predominantly like women and children, if it was a louder roar, and if it was dudes, and that would tell me how I was supposed to wrestle that night.
How do you find that out? How do you do that?
Because if it's guys,
Yeah.
it's got to be more sport oriented, and it's got to be hard hitting. If it's kids, you can get away with doing some ha. You know, guy pulls your trunks down and you're running around.
Right,
you know,
right.
stuff like that. Like if it's women, I mean, you literally, I would adjust based on that. And sometimes there are just little adjustments, and sometimes I'd have to throw that out the window and change on the fly. But it just helped me better prepare and to better entertain that particular audience on that night.
When you find out tips like that, do you share them with everybody else that you're going to be on stage with that night? Or do you sometimes try to keep that like, okay, this is a special moment for me?
No, I always tried to help everybody as much as I could. What got me jaded on it was I think the culture backstage was always... I was always trying to figure out, is this person asking me for advice because they genuinely want advice, or are they asking me for advice because they think that's going to they think they have to ask for advice.
Right.
Because that will help advance their career, you mean?
Yeah, like, but
Right.
I'm very much a don't waste my time guy.
Yeah.
I know there was one guy right at the tail end when I was hanging on by a thread, but I was still, I was on every show. Somebody would be like, hey, can you watch my match? And I'd be like, sure. And I watched the match, and I would give him critiques, and I would say, maybe, try this, try something different, don't do the same thing, blah, blah, blah. And then the next night, he'd be like, hey, watch my match. I watched the match, didn't listen to a fucking thing I said, did the same thing, exact thing he did the night before, you know what I mean? And he'd come back and he'd be like, you watch my match? And I would just be like, nope, missed it. I was stretching.
Was that person ultimately successul?
I think everybody there is
Right.
successful, you know what I mean?
To some extent,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
of course.
but I don't know if anybody looks at it the way I did. I was kind of obsessive, and I looked at it like art,
I think that people do. I mean, I heard that interview with John Moxley, with Jericho, and he was. I think a lot. Actually, to be honest with you, reminded me a lot of the stuff that you were saying. That why you got out even earlier, because of it wasn't fun anymore. It seemed like you couldn't be your own character. It seemed like there was because it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like the energy in the crowds and stuff, that kind of stuff never goes away.
When people ask me if I miss anything about it, it would be that.
Right.
It would be the performing and being able to pull the strings.
Yeah, that's a drug. look, that never goes away. I mean, I did stand-up comedy for a very long time, and that never goes away.
That's tough.
But it's exactly what you're saying. I relate to that so much. I would read. You got to read the crowds. You got to know what material you're going to do that night. If you got 20 minutes, you got to know what 20 minutes you're going to do. You're not going to do particular stuff that's going to work with one crowd. You got to do it the other way.
Right.
But listening to that John Moxley thing and saying that whether it comes to Vince having his point of view, what it's going to do, you got to get out. So it does make sense what you're saying here, because you don't want to be there if you're not happy. You just don't. But when I bring up John Moxley and you bring up like AEW too, because we had in Cody Rhodes like last week, and
Brandy,
and Brandy, and there's all that stuff about the AEW with you too, and like there's something you had said about that they had made an offer through text message.
Yeah.
He said that there wasn't made an offer through text message. You guys they did make an offer. You got sat down at like a coffee shop.
He denied the text message.
He said
offer?
he
said that took place.
No, he said
okay.
they definitely texted you.
Yeah.
But he said people took you out to coffee and they had conversations too. And because this thing with WWE, even you're announcing. Because when you're saying you didn't have fun is potentially one of the two things. Coming back to a place where you could have control of your character, you could do more things that make it fun, less of a traveling schedule like an AEW, right? Mm-hmm. Or working with young wrestlers and maybe being as far as being a booker and something along the lines where you can teach younger generations. Is that something that's interesting?
I don't know, because there's a big part of me. I mean, talking about wrestling and me doing anything in the wrestling arena is it always feels kind of weird and uncomfortable, because there's so many variables. And the number one thing for me is I will never put myself in a position where I could be harmed ever again. And there's a lot of trust that goes into that. So,
what do you mean by that?
I mean, I gave of myself to a point where I look back at it, and if I didn't leave and walk out, I would be dead, because nobody else was going to do it, because I was sick and I was hurt and I was messed up, and the people put in place to make sure to help.
They weren't protecting you.
They're not helping.
I see.
You know what I mean? I mean, it is what it is, but I begged for time off for I don't know how long. I never got it,
Well, that's notorious even back in the Ricky Steamboat days. That's notorious for that stuff.
Yeah, and I people tell me it's different now. Apparently you can go home with the sniffles, or you can call in, and like I say that, and like I'm mad at myself right now for saying that, because it's almost just like I'm trying to shame somebody. But like, if you're sick, you're sick. Go home.
Right.
If you're hurt, you're hurt. Don't wrestle. But because of the Fugazi lawsuit, like I have mountains of paperwork that they had to send over for discovery, where they're like discussing all these intensely crazy private things, but I'm not involved in the conversation. Like they're talking about my mental health. Like, oh, do you think maybe he's depressed? And everyone's just like, I don't know, but he's got to wrestle in Europe, for 2 weeks.
Right.
So, and it's just like, whoa, slow down. Like, as a member of the office, shouldn't you like put a hold on that and take this guy off the road and be like, hey, we were talking, maybe you're depressed, But no, it was just like
that conversation never came.
No, not with
Wow.
me. No, they had it internally.
Right, but never came with
they never mentioned it.
How do
to
you
me.
know that they had it internally?
Because I have the paperwork from the lawsuit from like Discovery. I got all their emails and stuff like that.
Do you think too? Because this is a conversation. I mean, Jesse Ventura used to scream about this shit all the time too. Is that because of Fox? Because now this is a much bigger thing now. Like you said, $4 billion whatever dollars. Are we ever going to see a union? Ever? No, never.
No, that's why I kind of my stance on when people are all like, oh, the boys. There's no such thing.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no such thing. And if you think there is, then chances are you're on a different level, and I don't mean a higher one, and I don't mean any disrespect. It's just that where I was at that time, I mean, it's insane how it's not a real sport, but it's more cutthroat than a real sport.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you did make real relationships, have real friends from being in there. Like we mentioned Batista earlier, that some of the people are really in your corner and do have your back.
The funny thing about me and Dave too is like Dave absolutely 100% disagrees with me the way I left.
Yeah.
but we're both both grown ass men who
Right.
can talk about it instead of just throwing stones.
And that's what you want from a buddy anyway. You want
Yes.
you want someone who's going to tell you, "Shit, dude, I don't think that you went about it the right way," and you go,
Right.
"Well, I disagree. Let's go get a beer or
Yeah.
whatever." Right.
Do you still feel like you went about it the right way?
I feel I went about it the way I had to go about it because nobody else was going to take me out of that situation.
Yeah, like you just said that you feel like you honestly would be dead if you hadn't done that.
I mean, concussions, and I had a staph infection, and it's not getting dealt with. It's not getting helped, and their concern was just he's got to go out there and wrestle. He's got to go out there and wrestle.
From everything you're saying, it looks like you made for your health and everything. So you made the right decision. And you step back. You're doing some fun shit. You also the other thing that you are is you're a film buff. You're a movie guy. Like,
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite movies? Like stuff like in any genre, not just horror.
Okay, so me and my wife had to do some touristy things.
Yeah.
So we went to Trejo's Donuts.
so
Oh,
good.
yeah.
They're good.
So good.
They're great. I'm a huge Stan's donut guy because we got a Stan's in Chicago.
One in
So
Westwood,
I'm a
right?
snob.
Yeah, man,
I'm
they're
a
so good.
snob. Anytime I eat another donut, I'm like, it's not Stan's. I can't finish
What's your
it.
thing though?
But
Like glazed,
Trejo's donuts
frosting?
were
Really?
excellent. Yeah. Boston cream.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like a good Boston cream, or I'm a sucker for all the seasonal ones. So like pumpkin and
Yeah.
apple spice donuts.
Stan's no joke though. The one in Westwood. My wife told me I had never even heard of Stan's. My wife has grown up in Westwood. Took me.
Amazing.
It's the best. Anyway,
So,
sorry. Go ahead.
so I was like, well, now we got to go get the tacos. These donuts were good. The tacos got to be banging, right? And we walked into the cantina, and Danny Trejo just sat us. He was just sitting. He was just sitting up there, and he's just like, "Hey, welcome. How are you?" And it's just like, awesome.
That's awesome.
And Heat is one of my favorite movies
Yes.
of all time.
So happy. That
So
you said
I was
that.
just like, oh, this is great.
What's the movie?
Heat.
Oh, Heat.
yeah,
Heat. I thought you said he's in one of my
no,
favorite.
no,
I
he's-
love Heat.
He's
Yeah.
Neil McCullough's boy. Yeah.
Oh my God, Heat's one of my favorite
And
movies.
I
He's
saw
an
it.
absolute doll too,
Yeah.
Danny.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
get to talk to him at all?
I mean, I talked to them a little bit there, and
Yeah.
that was it.
Good
you know.
tacos, right?
Yeah, they were great.
No, Heat's no joke. I remember that because it's like a 3-hour Michael Mann. Have you ever seen Heat?
Yeah. Oh my God, it's amazing. For the 30th
so-
anniversary, I went and saw it
it's so good.
in Westwood at the theater with the talk with him afterwards with Michael.
I love
It
that
was
movie
great.
so much. Okay, so Heat's obviously one. Oh, well, and speaking of which, because we can kind of transition there, De Niro and Pacino have that epic scene. Obviously, they're doing The Irishman.
Yeah.
The reviews have been insane.
I'm looking forward to it. It's like 3 hours plus, right?
I'm down. Well, Heat's almost 3 hours.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
If not, so.
I know.
So, listen, if it's Scorsese and it works, 3 hours. You
Yep.
kidding me? Give me 6.
I'm with you. I'm
Yeah.
with you. I'm a huge John Carpenter guy.
Okay.
Grew up on those movies: Halloween, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China. I love Shane Black.
Yeah,
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
great movie.
I'll watch anything with Val Kilmer in it. Salt and Sea's amazing.
Yeah.
Trying to throw like little bones out there for people who might not know, like the lesser known stuff.
That's
Going
Sense is
back
good
for a second though, I have to do it to him.
What?
To you.
Oh,
Christian's never seen The Thing. It's been a whole point
Really?
of contention on this show. Everybody wants him to see The Thing. It comes up at least once a week.
all the time.
Any
For the last 5 years.
any soft pitch for him on why he should see this movie if it's one of your favorites?
Practical effects.
Yeah.
This movie was made with no CGI, and it still blows anything out of the water made in 2019.
Are you going to listen to CM Punk or
Hard
no?
not to.
Just curious.
Hard not to.
Because none of us have been able to get
No,
him
I
to
know.
do it. So.
That's true. It's almost been it's like it's been a shtick thing. So, but I don't know.
I get it. I get
Yeah.
I get it.
You
Like
know what I
there's
You do?
movies. Yeah. Well, here I'll blow your mind.
Okay.
I've never seen a Rocky movie.
That's fucking crazy.
No
Especially-
interest or what?
I know what happens. Like
No.
it's so pop
man.
culture over the top. Like
Creed,
I know.
did you see or no?
I know.
Oh,
I've never seen
I
any of
know
them.
You're
everything
killing
that
me,
happens in the Rocky movie. Like
don't think you
get it.
do.
Oh,
I
Phil,
do.
you're killing me.
I absolutely do.
No,
What?
You could have said any other movie.
I've never seen it. I could quote the movie. That's how like over the top.
yeah, but you can't say Yo Adrian. That's easy.
Yeah.
It ain't
But
about
that's-
how
but
hard you
that's
get
easy.
hit.
Yeah.
See, you can't. You got to
can't do
see
it.
the movie.
We'll do
Proved it.
All right. Well, maybe we'll watch along one day. We'll try to get you to do Rocky.
I'm curious about, because we have spent movie time, but I'm a big TV girl, and now TV is better than ever with
Yeah.
all the different places to go. In your realm, Disney Plus launching so many different shows right now. Are you going to get the subscription? Are you going to watch? Is there a show that you would love to be on? Or?
Yeah,
said Moon Knight,
absolutely.
right?
I'm getting.
Oh, that's true.
I'm sure I'm getting the subscription. I'll keep up to date with all the Marvel stuff. I saw saw an article recently where they like released the budgets for every single episode, and it's just like, man, they're all in.
Yeah.
They're spending money on this thing. So I tend to gravitate towards like the lesser known, like more gritty stuff that's more up my alley. Like, did you guys watch Hap and Leonard?
No. What's that?
Oh my God. So Joe Lansdale.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Joe Lansdale's a writer, prolific writer, and he's written since like the early '90s this series of books called Hap and Leonard about like these. It kind of gives it away if I explain it. One, they're down like West Texas, I think. So it's like gnarly West Texas. One is a black gay Vietnam veteran, and his best friend / brother, they grew up together, was a conscientious dissenter in the Vietnam War, and he was like a peace-loving hippie white guy. Yeah. And they kind of like team up, and they're both proficient in kung fu, so you get your action. They tackle pretty stiff subject matter like racism and like all this stuff. And there's 3 seasons. I think it's on. It's either on Amazon.
Cody,
or
bring that
Hulu.
up. What's the name of it again?
Hap and Leonard.
Hap and Leonard.
There's a million.
Are those their names?
There's
Hap and
There's a
Leonard.
million books,
Okay.
and the books are awesome. There's 3 seasons.
There it is. Hap and Leonard. It is
Sundance
on Sundance
TV.
TV.
3 seasons.
Okay.
There's 6 episodes each.
Oh, James Purefoy.
They're
I
awesome.
like James Purefoy.
They're
Oh, Netflix.
So
Well,
awesome.
It's
It's
a
on Netflix.
subscription.
There you go.
Yeah,
is
so
it?
I guess one of those aired on Sundance TV. Then you can watch it
then
on
you
Netflix.
can watch it. Well, that's awesome.
I'm a TV. That's my thing.
Highly recommended.
I've never heard of this show.
Highly
You
recommended.
gotta check it out.
What? Okay.
Awesome. Listen, Phil, it was an
Thanks.
absolute pleasure to have you on, man.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The movie, it's Girl on the Third Floor. It's in theaters. It's on digital on October 25th. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you on. And if you're ever, when you're doing this again, you live in Chicago?
I do.
You live in
I
Chicago?
live in Chicago and Milwaukee.
Okay. Well, when you're in LA again, please come back and let's just shoot the shit. We can just talk about movies next time. No more wrestling questions.
You got it. I mean, I don't mind. You guys are gonna get me in trouble for all those wrestling questions, but I'm the one who opens my mouth and says things. But
Well, you're the man, dude. Thank you so much for being in here. Guys, thank you. Make sure you check this movie out. It is October 25th. Phil Brooks, CM Punk. Thanks, brother.
Thank
All right,
you.
we'll be back.